for fun, I decided to respond to a hate video. Them leaping at the chance to insult me based on such an unassuming comment is pretty much proof I hold a lot of power here. What a prat. Hello and welcome to another video on Anthony Gramuglia Ding Dong. One more video than I intended to make on the Git, but he decided to get all defensive on me and start making a 3-hour-long live stream dedicated to me. Blimey, that's hilarious given the opening I'm planning to add to this segment. Actually, I should give some context to that because I doubt everybody watching this will know what happened there. On the 9th of June 2025, Gojin the Makai hosted a stream talking about media analysis and critique, in which multiple YouTube videos were shown, including one from Anthony Grampus. A day later, the Dick Who Soiled Christmas posted a 30-second clip from that 6-hour live stream onto Twitter and declared it was a 6-hour live stream of people getting mad about him. Despite people calling him out on this flagrant misrepresentation, Tony Baloney did not take responsibility for his actions and actively dodged finding out the actual content of the stream, or telling his audience the truth about it. So since I was already making a video on Ant Gram and the Husk Blundermania, I stapled a new ending onto my video about this event and my new updated opinion on him. On the 16th of June, Tony Goo Goo Gachu left a comment under my video making fun of me for criticising his first video and that he himself considered it to be bad. Which is hilarious because one of the, admittedly many, points in my video was his first video was bad and his subsequent videos were just as bad, if not worse. Thank you for agreeing with me, Anthony. I even point this out in my reply to his comment. This apparently went over his head when he posted his comment and my reply to Twitter. Does responding an hour and a half later count as leaping at the chance? Anyway, he went on to make multiple posts criticising my video and misrepresenting it. Surprise, surprise. He also responded to and criticised me on Twitter multiple times. Responded to and criticised multiple people on Twitter with regards to me multiple times. Responded to and criticised me under my video multiple times, which ended rather hilariously because his last comment was, "You have my attention now," and then I didn't reply because he didn't have mine. And finally, he dedicated a 3-hour live stream to me and my video, which I assume will just be him criticising me. No, I haven't watched it yet, and I'm letting people know this up front so they know that this is just my uninformed opinion, rather than letting people assume this is factual, Anthony. Oh yeah, and after all this, he still refused to take responsibility for his well-documented actions. But with all this in mind, if my one critical response gives him power over me, what does all of his critical responses to me give me? Obviously, this is me being silly. Criticising someone does not give the criticised power over the criticiser, and them suggesting such makes them look really insecure and arrogant. Also, reading through my replies and comments makes me realise how my dyslexia keeps forcing its way back to the surface. Bloody hell. Anyway, now we're all caught up, I can get round to watching his stream, which again, I don't know if it's a full 3 hours all about me or not, or if it's entirely negative. But we shall find out, won't we? And I want to point out beforehand that I don't expect any meaning or progress to be garnered from watching this stream. I fully expect Anthony Gruffalo to lie, constantly, about both what I meant and what he meant. I'm very straightforward with what I say, mainly because I'm shit at line, so there's no interpreting to be done there. Anthony, on the other hand, lies all the bloody time, so he constantly has to recontextualize what he says to avoid the consequences of his actions. So yeah, I expect my words to be changed and twisted to suit his narrative, and for him to do the same for his. But we shall see.
I think it's a pretty good plan. We should be able to pull it off this time. What do you think, Abdul? Can you give me a number crunch real quick?
Yeah, give me a sec. I'm coming up with 32.33, repeating of course, percentage of survival.
Oh, that's a lot better than we usually do.
Alright, chums up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
Oh my god, he just ran in.
Bleach. Drinks bleach.
Showers with it.
Ah! Well, that was an experience. So I finally got round to watching the stream about me. Mr. Who did indeed watch my video on it, and no, it wasn't the whole 3 hours. It was more like an hour and a half, so half the stream? I would admit watching my video back on it wasn't great. My video was originally meant to be a quick video saying why I thought Mr. Who was a bit pants. Then it expanded and essentially became 3 videos in one. So I'm not surprised he thought he could tear it apart. What amazed me was he didn't, but not for lack of trying. And before we go any further, I just want to say I bloody called it. He lied so much. He lied about my tweets.
Again, more of this. He wanted me to know. He wanted me to know that he wanted to talk about me.
He lied about how many videos I made on him. He lied about a conspiracy of people against him.
And this is apparently like one of like 3 or 4 videos they've done about me. Oh, as a group. It's a group of people who've done this. But yeah, this is about 20 minutes long. We'll get started right here. And there's a second video they did too that they reference. Apparently there's a whole community of people who can't stand me.
He lied about the contents and context of his clips that I use. After these terrible responses, he goes on to say people only talk about Godzilla in reference and comparison to Disney.
They don't... Hang on, what? Against Disney. That's not necessarily how I said it though, buddy. I think you cut some details out, I'm pretty sure.
He lied about his evidence.
Actually, no, I don't think I missed that point. I said that the movie's not that good. I said I didn't even like it all that much, dude. Literally right here. Let's take a look at that. 1 second. Don't seem to really matter in the culture war. The only thing I'm talking about here is the themes.
A few moments later.
It doesn't matter if he defends terrible media. And
you know, in context of that video, I'm criticizing it, but okay, sure. I mean, a lot of people don't like this movie. That's just a common consensus at some points. And a lot of people don't really like that film. No one ranks Godzilla 1985 as one of their favorite Godzilla films. If you look at people ranking the Godzilla films, 1985 is rarely ever ranked that high on their rankings. Do I have to cite every single person who didn't love Godzilla 1985?
Always. Just you.
It's probably one of the weaker films, I'd say. I find it very dull. Every Godzilla film ranked from Screen Rant. This was my first credits back in 2019, back when I was still writing for Screen Rant in CBR. And there's 1985. Return of Godzilla, near the bottom of my ranking. I think Return of Godzilla is indeed worse than Godzilla 1998.
What? He lied about my editing.
I think a lot of fans now, though, are so caught up in the serious, Oscar-winning kaiju-sized metaphors that we're forgetting how inherently silly Godzilla is. Even going back to the first film, the original Godzilla is about a guy wearing a suit, walking around, crushing toy buildings and tanks.
Yeah. It does have that happen in it. And if you finish my clip, you would then hear me talk about the metaphor and allegory. It's funny how when you take ideas out of context, there's more to it than that. It's funny how when you only include about 5 seconds of a clip, you leave out some key details. Why did you cut the clip that way, by the way, dude? Why didn't you show a little ahead of it, a little after it? What happens if you show a little bit more of the clip? Should I? I don't want to because I don't want to look at my face in that shot.
Fine, I'll do it myself.
It's not a hard decision. Don't take too long to figure it out. I think a lot of fans now, though, are so caught up in the serious, Oscar-winning kaiju-sized metaphors that we're forgetting how inherently silly Godzilla is. Even going back to the first film, there is some goofiness there. It's a guy in a giant rubber... Well, actually, it was a ready-mix cement. Actually, people don't realize this. The original rubber suit was a mix of latex and cement. Imagine looking that around. At the end of the day, the original Godzilla is about a guy wearing a suit, walking around, crushing toy buildings and tanks. And despite what various, admittedly very effective, analog horror films or shorts on YouTube would like to tell you, it was just that, guy in a suit. You know, for most of those old films. Back in the days when Godzilla came on screen, there were 3 ways to effectively bring monsters to life: rubber suits, puppetry, or stop motion.
And if you finish my clip, you would then hear me talk about the metaphor and allegory.
You lie!
There's so many other lies he tells, all of which will be revealed when I get around to editing the full reaction video. But for now, I want to return to those tweet lies because he doesn't just make them at the start of the stream.
This video is from a very small channel, so I don't want to necessarily overwhelm the channel, but he felt the need to tag me a few times on Twitter. He wanted me to know. He wanted me to know that he wanted to talk about me. He also is involved. He also messaged me about 50 times to get my attention about this video. He messaged me and tagged me multiple times. He literally asked me for this multiple times. He begged me to react. Hey, if you're begging for this, I'll respond.
To say this is a falsehood is an understatement. I find it hilarious that I started the first half of this video evidencing how this all got started, which included saying how Gramuglia talked to me first. He tweeted about me 3 times, tweeted at me, then commented on my video before I'd ever spoken to him or at him. Sorry, what was that again?
He begged me to react. I begged you! Oh, just a little bit of history repeating.
Mr. Who doesn't just lie. He also cocks up quite a bit, mostly due to his missing the context of my statements because he's pausing or not listening or just missing stuff in the video that he's supposedly watching. Since art is a self-expressive endeavour, artists are allowed to create what they like, up to a point. I mean, leaving fake bombs around London causing panic and disruption is obviously beyond the point.
What? What does that have to do with artists? What does dropping a nail bomb have to do with artists, dude?
Sometimes he misses things with suspicious accuracy. He also strawmans me several times while complaining I strawman him. I'm also sure Gramuglia is the sort of person who'd say anime is for children because it's cartoons.
Now you're just putting words in my mouth.
A few moments later.
The problem there, my friend, is you conflate silliness for immaturity.
Sometimes he straight up fails to understand things, like he thinks Mr. Who is meant to be his actual nickname and not a scathing reference.
Now I want to point out something right now. Them not agreeing with my Godzilla film? Hey, that's my Godzilla video? That's fine. That's cool. I don't really care. But But acting like this is some like nickname, I'm very confused by, because no one has ever called me Mr. Who.
He also doesn't understand like basic media concepts, like the initial idea that inspired a piece of media can and does affect the finished quality of that same piece of media. He also doesn't seem to understand what quotation marks are. I have heard some Japanese people say, if foreigners don't like it, they shouldn't watch Japanese entertainment. It's made for Japanese people.
Why'd you not finish the sentence? Why'd you stop there? Why'd you not say this is a foolish thought?
A really, really annoying one for me was the assumptions. He assumes that I assume the same things he assumed and criticises me for not making the same assumptions he did. He somehow got two completely different assumptions out of the same tweet and saw no problem with that.
So right here. Dangerville. Oh, that's cool. Wait, because the monsters run, quote unquote. Dangerville's a pretty big Godzilla channel. He had the same interpretation of this post that I did.
A few moments.
Then his response to the MCU-fication
Here we
of
go,
this
here's the post.
franchise should be studied was to say Godzilla has done team-ups before.
Saying the MCU-fication that implies team-ups also, so that's fair too.
But Yog forbid I conflate messages and allegories.
All the Godzilla films have very strong themes. Godzilla films are not without their messages. I think it's because it lacked a real allegorical component to it.
And
Those aren't contradictory. Messages are not all allegorical. It's what I'm... Dude, what are you talking about? A message is the ideas presented by a film. Allegory is the idea that the film represents something very specific. Those aren't comparable.
the big one, though, was his accusation that I was lying and misrepresenting his video because I was using vague terminologies, after admitting himself that he was the one being vague in the first place. And since I was using his video to talk about, well, his video, I was using the same vague terminologies.
And mind you, my problem is saying all fans, which I did not say, but I didn't specify some. That's one problem with the phrasing of the first video. I think I should have been a little more, in terms of my phrasing, a little more obvious. We're talking about a specific subset of fans, as opposed to an entire brush of them.
He goes on to say people only talk about Godzilla in reference and comparison to Disney.
Okay, first off, huge misrepresentation of what I said. I said specific people involved in the culture war only reference Godzilla in reference to Disney, not people in general. So right there, you're already lying about my video.
Because when it comes down to it, a lot of folks love Godzilla right now for one reason, especially in the culture war. It's doing better than Disney.
Unfortunately, Gramuglia seems to have this weird notion that post hoc rewordings expunge previous statements. No, the older comments are the ones I and others are commenting on, not the new altered ones you just made up. What else does he do? Oh yeah, he criticises my mispronunciation of his name, despite admitting everyone gets it wrong. Then mishears me saying Zimzilla and tries to make fun of me for it. Gramuglia was not so fortunate when Zimzilla covered one of his videos on
Zimzibber? I don't know who Zimzibber is.
Zimzilla.
Zimzibber?
Zimzilla.
Zimzibber?
Zimzilla.
Zimzibber?
At one point he makes fun of my editing for no good reason, when I'm pointing out his editing is bad and hurting his argument. Oh, he reveals he does in fact steal his ideas from other people. But we knew this already, so that's not a huge surprise. Also, argument from authority? Really? And what an authority to pick. One who lost an argument to me. And publicly accepted it. Like I said, this is a TLDW version with a few select clips to give you an idea of what the stream was like. To get the full context and see my initial thoughts, the full reaction video will be edited together. Soon. Eventually. Hopefully. On the weekend of the 21st and 22nd of June, I went through the stream made about me and my video. As is my wont, I posted some reactions to Twitter, and specifically on the 22nd I posted this list of quotes from the stream. I did not name Gargamel in glasses in those tweets, nor did I @ or hashtag him or anyone else. The next day, someone who I didn't know commented on my tweet and referenced Mr. Who. Sure enough, Grumblefumble had retweeted my list of quotes and called me obsessed. Again. Which is odd considering there was no way of him knowing about this tweet unless he came looking for it. Was he stalking me just to lie about me and send undue hate my way? His followers clearly weren't looking at what he was retweeting, just at what he was saying about it. A fact made worse when he retweeted my short video. I mentioned earlier how this all got started, i.e. I advertised my video on Twitter, Gramuglia retweeted me and made a short thread about the video, then he replied to my tweet directly and commented under my video on YouTube to get my attention. The barrage of unrequited posts looks a little desperate in hindsight, only made worse by him immediately making a Twitter thread about my reply to his YouTube comment. It honestly screams of someone starving for attention, which is why it felt like such an own goal when he said on stream that I begged him to watch my video multiple times. How could he say that when he'd watched my video multiple times before I'd ever spoken to him? It was the most obvious lie going, and was so easy to falsify with a single screenshot, which is what I did in my short video, and for a time I thought he was going to avoid it. I tweeted about the short video not long after the quotes, and yet he didn't mention it when he retweeted them. So imagine my surprise when a day later, he did retweet the short video. Imagine my lack of surprise when he buried it under a metric ton of screenshots of my tweets and capped it all off with the message, "So you just messaged me once?" That's not what we were talking about, as I pointed out in my retweet that he never responded to because his balls ran away, again. And once again, his followers swallowed everything he had to vomit up without question. Again. This time, out of curiosity, I asked everyone who replied if they'd actually looked at the evidence being presented. Most didn't reply. A few replied with no, and one, closely followed by a second, did actually reply and have a conversation. This single instance gives me hope that there is some intelligence lurking in amongst Gramuglia's followers, peeking out from under the veil of lies he keeps them under. Unfortunately, it appears to be few and far between, meaning Gramuglia has cultivated quite the dull following. I would just like to point out that after I started asking his followers if they had actually looked at the screenshots and whatnot that he had posted, the person-shaped pile of piss-stained pus that calls itself Anthony Gramuglia threatened me with a spam report. Was he worried that his followers were going to start thinking about the things that he said? If that's not a sign of a fragile ego, I don't know what is. Watching you change the narrative in your head in real time is fascinating. I said you owe them an apology, to clarify, for lying about their stream. You respond with, they don't want to engage with my arguments, which is a lie you are fully aware of and I clarified it here. You then say, I don't have to engage. Could you, maybe, possibly, actually follow through on a point rather than constantly dodging? I said this in conversation with Gramuglia in the comments under my YouTube video. A conversation I had before going to Twitter to then beg him to watch the video we were talking under. Anyway, I'd noticed Mr. Who was trying to change the subject and was calling him out on it. Take away the context and these observations can quite easily apply to the punching down discussion too. Someone observed that he was punching down on the small creator, i.e. me. He said I asked him to, I denied, he started talking about the number of tweets I made, and suddenly we're no longer talking about the fact he tried to justify punching down. Much like in his tweet about my YouTube comment where he admitted to lying by blaming someone else. What is wrong with this guy? There's more, of course. I said earlier that Gramuglia takes other people's ideas and opinions as his own, but we already knew that. And we know that because he reused my criticism of him trying to change the conversation and used it on Gojin the Makai, who was actively confronting Gramuglia about him lying. Did he write that while looking in a mirror? Oh, and what else is there? Yep, the begging comment. Everything he does is repeated over and over again, isn't it? Just another quick interjection, but if you want a better idea of just how terminally online Anthony Gramuglia is, Monster Essays released an hour-long video going over the Twitter drama involving Gramuglia and his lies about the stream. Honestly, he makes fun of me for tweeting at him like 6 times and calling me obsessed, and then he tweets dozens upon dozens of times in like a day over this one subject. Projection! This is why it bugs me when his fans say he means what he says, he believes what he says. His own thoughts are copy-pasted from one conversation to the next to the point they lose all meaning. Everything else he takes from other people, but with only a smidgen of the conviction and justification. And of course, let's not forget the post hoc rewordings to make himself sound better or recontextualize a subject. If his words and meanings can so easily be changed, what worth do they have? I once described Gramuglia as having opinions that change with the breeze. Sea Monster said it better. He's like a turd in the wind, rolling from one shit comment to the next. And that's the thing. Anthony Gramuglia doesn't want an intelligent conversation. He doesn't want to raise the bar of discourse. All Anthony Gramuglia wants to do is get attention, whatever the amount and whatever the cost. Which might make this whole video seem counterintuitive, but there is a method to the madness. My original video was a hodgepodge of reactions and opinions that Gramuglia seemed to think was a sign of me falling into some kind of trap. And yet that video got his attention and spurred his arrogance and vanity into dedicating an hour and a half to trying to make me look bad. But in the end he only exposed himself to more criticism of his terrible opinions and falsifying of his lies. It also showed that he knew he was doing wrong, to the point that he needed to project himself onto his victim to justify his shitty behaviour.
Bro has less than 1,000 subscribers. Isn't this punching down? It is punching down. However, as mentioned at the start of this, he also is involved. He also messaged me about 50 times to get my attention about this video. So he got my attention. He messaged me and tagged me multiple times. So I gave him attention. So the thing is, it is punching down if... I agree usually, but the problem is he literally asked me for this multiple times. He begged me to react. So I'm reacting.
As it turned out, I got far more to work with than I was expecting. Gramuglia is what some people would like to call terminally online, and his Twitter page is chock full of replies and comments about all sorts of crap. In trying to find screenshots of his tweets for this video, I had to wade through one Twitter feud after another. Not only does he do this all the time, but he seemingly has no qualms about what he applies himself to. This would normally be an admirable trait, except his applications are lies and torments. This goes for the smallest of YouTubes mentioning him on a live stream, or poking the writhing husk that is the Star Wars fandom, to racism, sexism, suicides, and... On the 4th of July 2024, Anthony Gramuglia posted this tweet. Update. As more info comes forward, this is starting to sound like a nothing burger. A person being involved in skeevy relationships is different than assault, and even the podcast shows audio of all parties admitting it was consensual. As a standalone screenshot, this doesn't really tell us much. No names are mentioned, no ats or hashtags are used, and despite mentioning a podcast, he does not name it. So this tweet isn't that much to use on its own. On the 5th of July 2024, a day after Nothing Burger, Gramuglia posts 2 more tweets. As the Neil Gaiman situation continues to unfold, I find it very interesting how a certain group of trans-exclusionary radical feminists keep telling people to believe all women, while ignoring all the points where the supposed victims insist everything was consensual. He follows up with, the podcast really overplayed its hand by showing everything. It disproves its own thesis in the context of the evidence. There is a third tweet under these 2, but that is posted a day later and has some significance of its own, so we'll come back to that then. Here we have names being named. Neil Gaiman, an English author who was accused and still is being accused of sexual assault. This year, his case has gone to court, with yet more victims coming forward to provide evidence. Back in 2024, the website Tortoise Media released 6 podcast episodes discussing the allegations. The first 4 episodes were released on the 3rd of July 2024, a day before the Nothing Burger tweet. So now we have our context, supported by the follow-up tweets a day later, actively naming the accused rapist. And, worryingly, stating that the victims, or the alleged victims I should say, were lying about the assaults. Gramuglia does not use those exact words, I'm going to point that out here for reasons you shall soon see, but stating as fact that the alleged victims of sexual assault said everything was consensual, it's kind of hard to take away any other message than they were lying. And he reinforces his source for this opinion, the Tortoise Media podcasts. So now let's go back to the Nothing Burger tweet and look at it with this new context. Immediately, the Nothing Burger opinion hits hard. A Nothing Burger has no substance, and if rape allegations have no substance, then there was no rape. So, again, Anthony Gramuglia calls alleged rape victims liars. Worse, the skeevy relationship line suggests that it wasn't that nothing happened. It suggests that things did happen, but there was no wrongdoing. The acts perpetrated were fine. Back on the 5th of July 2024, someone asks Gramuglia, wait, so the women did in fact say everything was consensual? And Gramuglia responds, yeah, apparently multiple times. The excitement is palpable in that yeah, which is not a great thing to feel from someone talking about rape allegations. The next words speak volumes about the potentials behind Gramuglia's opinions and statements. But the last 2 specifically have significant meaning for me regards my situation with the erstwhile Screen Rant associate.
He also is involved. He also messaged me about 50 times to get my attention about this video. He messaged me and tagged me multiple times.
On the 6th of July 2024, Anthony Gramuglia posts that 3rd tweet we saw earlier. People have pointed this out, so I will respond. I am not saying the situation isn't messy. Clearly there is an age and power dynamic that should be criticised, but that's a vastly different conversation than one surrounding sexual assault, and to conflate the two helps no one. Calling the situation messy is an understatement, but notice how the goalposts have been shifted. Before, he declared the story was without substance and everything was consensual. Now there's an age and power dynamic to be criticised. This is the beginning of the wriggling away from responsibility that we are already familiar with. He's sticking to his guns, but he's slowly sidestepping away. Also on the 6th of July 2024, Gramuglia makes what some might perceive as a damning statement. It would be defensive, but saying Gaiman didn't commit rape but he did use his position for personal gain is a criticism, just a measured criticism. The quotation marks suggest this could have been said by someone else first. It could also suggest he said it earlier and is repeating it. Either way, he is using it and is defending it. He is defending the statement that the alleged rapist Neil Gaiman did not commit rape. On the 8th of July, 4 days after Nothing Burger, Gramuglia tweets, "That I am honestly less sure of. When I read the article, I would have said yes. Listening to the podcast the first time, however, I had doubts. But after this weekend, I am doubting my initial memory of the podcast. Did I misinterpret it? Was I looking for holes in the story?" Just like the Nothing Burger tweet, we have very little context to work with here, so we don't know what article he is referring to. But we can see signs of backing down or changing his story. Not accepting blame or responsibility for his words. Oh no, that he's trying to dodge and put onto the podcast he misheard or misremembered. But his story has changed. Why? Unfortunately, the next two posts are undated, so we can only guess where they take place in the timeline. I have decided they must have occurred before the 8th of July for reasons that will hopefully become clear. This first pair of tweets shows someone describing the Tortoise Media podcast or podcasts. First of all, she doesn't explain what happened when she went to the police, so we can only assume that for them at the time there was no basis to even start an investigation. Sure, it's not the first time a woman's accusations have been underestimated. Above this tweet, someone has replied with corrections, apparently with their own thread. "More shameless lies from a Gaiman fan. The podcast includes a recording of the victim talking to the police. We do not have to assume what happened. If the police don't think you'll succeed in criminal prosecution, that means you weren't raped. Heinous rape apologia." These tweets connected up with Gramuglia's apparently and bad memory tweets and recent events is highly suggestive of where Gramuglia actually got his information from, regards the Tortoise Media podcasts, and his opinions on the alleged victims. And this suggestion only gets stronger with this next, again undated, set of tweets. "What is misconstrued? Do you deny that Gaiman non-consensually sexually penetrated women despite their protests? Persisted despite their outward expressions of pain, and was reported to the police by a victim for this? I asked you to tell me specifically what you think is inaccurate. Do you believe it is false that a victim reported him to the police for raping her?" Anthony Gramuglia responds, "I would like to see the police report before I can talk about that." When Anthony Gramuglia posted tweets about Gojin the Mackay's podcast and later my video, he made declarative statements as to their substances. Later, after everyone had read and had their opinions poisoned by his words, he would state that someone else told him about them and he hadn't actually watched them himself.
And I have watched some of it, skipped around a little bit. Most of it is, well, we'll find out.
We can see this happen in small scale and in real time on his live stream.
So you know, the backseater said was he threatened violence on people in chat. He was saying like just violent stuff, and Chloe gave him the ban hammer like in an instant. Saw that going like, nope, banned. I didn't even see it. Chloe told me like after it already happened. So you know, it's fun stuff.
When people, including myself, tried to correct him afterwards, Gramuglia went out of his way to ignore evidence being presented to him, even to the point of demanding more and more difficult variations of evidence to be presented to him. And here he is doing the exact same thing. He may have listened to some of the podcast, maybe he skipped around a little bit, but there's a strong chance he read the Toulon didn't listen tweets describing the podcast, not knowing they were inaccurate. Then when someone told him he was wrong, instead of having some self-awareness, he dug his heels in and resisted acknowledging his wrongdoing. This not only shows his massive hypocrisy, i.e. declaring untruths as facts on the weakest of information while resisting telling the truth despite strong evidence to the contrary, but this also shows a pattern of behaviour, one he is willing to apply to any situation regardless of importance or severity. On the 1st of August 2024, Gramuglia tweets, "There are times difficult topics come up and you feel bad not being able to offer a sufficient answer for them, but you just lack the energy to respond to more awful news with an answer that makes everyone satisfied. Also, you remember prior instances where you gave an answer without all the facts, the energy to make a focused answer. You ended up causing a massive controversy that got you death threats. I mean, that definitely makes you second guess yourself until you feel tongue-tied." There's a few things to be taken from these tweets. His urge to talk about things, his need to make everyone happy, his confusion over trying to achieve both. But these are small things to take away in comparison to the big thing to take away. Gramuglia is painting himself as the victim and is trying to get sympathy points because people are upset with him for defending an alleged rapist and calling alleged rape victims liars. I think this supports my opinion of Gramuglia as being a bloated, arrogant, unapologetic egotist. This next tweet from the same day brings everything into confusion. Just assume he did it until proven otherwise, it's easier. Oh, that's not the part I have difficulty responding to. I am reasonably sure he did it. Once again, no context, so we have to assume, but that causes problems. Does he mean he thinks Gaiman committed rape? Or is Gramuglia standing by his earlier statements that sex happened but the circumstances were quote-unquote messy? And to point out something I wasn't aware of when first finding these tweets, the first 4 episodes of the Tortoise Media podcasts covering the Neil Gaiman case came out on the 3rd of July, the day before the Nothing Burger tweet. These 2 tweets from Gramuglia on the 1st of August were posted the same day as episode 5 of the podcast. On the 27th of July 2024, episode 6 of the Tortoise Media podcast was released. The next day, on the 28th, Gramuglia tweeted this. "Yeah, this is factually wrong. I have multiple times responded to the more accusations and fully believe those coming forward. I feel like you are making assumptions about me without actually seeing my full situation." He is clearly responding to someone, although who and in what context we don't know, again, but he is now stating he believes the victims, so he's changed his tune completely. We do also once again get the whole multiple times line, which historically at this point hasn't been used well by him, and that last line is also massively ironic given what he does and how he does it. Then we jump to this year, 2025, and Neil Gaiman is now being taken to court over the alleged sexual assaults. On the 8th of May, Gramuglia apparently got into another discussion about the case and his previous thoughts on it. These have been addressed. I retracted the tweets a day after making them and have spent a lot of time spreading accurate information about this topic. My information was based on limited knowledge of the case. I very quickly changed my tune as I learned more. There is some truth to this tweet, but how much we will never know. We do know, based on the tweets from the 5th and 6th of July 2024, that he has indeed deleted some of his past tweets on the subject. And we have one tweet as evidence that he did change his mind regards calling alleged rape victims liars. But notice the wording here. And notice what he doesn't say. And notice what he blames his words on. This comment was left under my video about Gramuglia's terrible opinions. It is in response to someone mentioning Gramuglia calling alleged rape victims liars and saying Neil Gaiman didn't rape anyone. This is inaccurate. I criticised Tortoise Media who broke the story in regards to how they presented the information. I never said the victims were lying. This whole thing is a lie. In fact, it is 3 lies in a trench coat pretending to be truth. First, the posts he's responding to are accurate. He did defend Neil Gaiman and he did call alleged victims liars. Secondly, he didn't criticise Tortoise Media, at least not for making out that the alleged victims were liars. He criticised them for providing all the information, which is a very weird criticism. And he criticised them, for his memory of the podcasts, or his intentions towards the podcasts. And 3, he did say the victims were lying, just not in so many words. Which, as we've seen in recent events, he is quite fond of doing. He says a thing, but with words that can be reinterpreted later if need be. And this concludes Anthony Gramuglia's pattern of behaviour. He lies about someone or something to get engagement. He doubles down and refuses to accept evidence to the contrary when confronted about his lie. He will make himself out to be the victim of abuse from people calling out his lie. If enough pressure is applied, he will eventually begin to shift the blame away from himself. And eventually he will declare that he is doing the right thing now and has corrected the error. But nowhere in this pattern of behaviour, nor in any of the tweets in relation to the Neil Gaiman case or his more recent activities, will you see him directly accept blame for his own words, or apologise. Given the ongoing references and confrontations he's having about the Neil Gaiman case, and given his obvious ego and arrogance, you'd think he'd have his apology tweets on standby, ready to rub in people's faces. Literally anyone who would say, "Oh, didn't you say this about this?" You go, "Well, I think you'll find," post link. But he doesn't. Which only suggests he never made them. Which means he never apologised, or accepted blame for calling alleged rape victims liars. This next tweet wasn't in my original batch of tweets, I found it later, but I think it has a lot to contribute to this investigation, as it were. I don't know how far this tweet will reach, but I want to clarify something. Anthony Gramuglia is not an Annie-Fem writer. He is not staff. He is not affiliated with the website. He is an occasional contributor, and we do not endorse his statements about Neil Gaiman. This is somebody who has apparently worked with Anthony Gramuglia in the past, someone who employed him, and now somebody who is distancing themselves as much as possible from him. And I do not blame them, which leads me straight back into my script. This is where I get off the crazy train and say we're done here. I've already stated this feud has been a pox on my mental health. Now I learn it could be so much worse, because I'm dealing with someone who has no soul. If you're still watching and think all of this is appalling, share it around. You don't have to mention me by name. I don't care if I don't get any benefit for it. Hell, give it to Hassan Piker and XQC to watch while they have their lunch on screen. As long as this gets out there and more people are aware of the things Gramuglia has done, and potentially will do, which is the more worrying part. It is one thing to go head to head with someone whose opinions are different or bad. It is another to deal with someone who stalks your Twitter page, spreads lies about you, and does nothing to quell his followers messaging you insults. And it's even worse to discover he will do this with literally anything, including rape cases. That's the most eye-opening part about all this. None of this has anything to do with what Anthony Gramuglia thinks about Neil Gaiman or of the alleged rape victims. It has everything to do with getting attention and feeding his own ego, no matter the lies he has to weave, or the people he has to hurt. That should hopefully be an eye-opener for his followers as well, if they have made it this far into the video. If you have made it this far and you are still listening, well, what else is there to say? I'm sorry for what you've just gone through. And last but not least, thank you for watching. This one goes out to Anthony Mr. Who Gramuglia. Anthony Gramuglia, you're shit, and you know you are.